All right, welcome back. Now we're going to look at Sagittarius and the environments that Sagittarius rules. So in the Yavana Jataka, it says that Sagittarius rules places of level land, and that makes sense because Sagittarius is a horse, an archer, well, a half man, half horse, according to this text, but actually other texts just give it as an archer. Brihat Prashara just gives it as the bowman or the archer from the translation that I read, I believe. So either way, both will work, but it has a lot to do with horses. So places of level land, like places where horses would roam, wild horses would roam, like great plains, the plains areas of like the Midwest of the United States, there's a lot of that space. But really any great level landed, flat, big space that isn't already being occupied by what the other signs would do. So if it's a flat city, it's Libra, remember? Or if it's a flat landed desert, then it's going to be ruled by Scorpio, because Scorpio rules deserts. So this would be, and then if it's just a, even Virgo rules grassy hillside areas. So if it's a little bit hillside even and grassy like that, that might still be a Virgo. But a long flat landed space that isn't falling into these other categories would work for Sagittarius. So they say places of level land, places of horses, both singly and in herds. So even places where just a single horse is kept, like a barn. Where I live in Charleston, there is a carriage tour. There are carriage tour companies. So those carriage tour companies would be under the dominion of Sagittarius because there are horses in barns there and stables. There are lots of places like that. So even, of course, horse races would be ruled by Sagittarius, being at the horse races and where the jockeys are and all of that. That's definitely a thing. Now, it also says places of alcoholic drinks, because Sagittarius is a jovial sign ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter, when he's really strong, he may want to find joy in maybe more healthy ways than alcohol, but he's not always like that. So he's not always so dignified. So he'll have a drink. And so Sagittarius is definitely a sign of people, as you may know, who like to drink, who like to have fun, who like to keep the good times going and are jovial and all of that. And sometimes that can become unhealthy. It can be healthy or unhealthy. That depends on the rest of the chart. But Sagittarius itself is a sign of joy and being jovial. The word jovial comes from Jove, the Roman word for Jupiter. So when we would say, by Jove, he did it, it means like he somehow spontaneously, something worked out for him. He was able to make something happen out of nothing, which Jupiter does in the chart. He'll make things work out even when maybe they shouldn't have. So places of alcoholic drinks. So places where people are having fun, bars maybe. But then again, bars can also be ruled by Gemini, so that's sort of a trickier one. There's some overlap there. Now, weapons bearers. Places where weapons are being stored, armories, it also says that for Sagittarius. And that makes a lot of sense because Jupiter is the ether element, the element of Akash, space, where we get the word Akashic records from. So Jupiter is the element of space, and then Sagittarius is the sign of the bowman, which is a weapon, and it's a fire sign of action. Fire signs can be involved in war. So you put that together, and Jupiter's, Sagittarius is about storing weapons, having a space for the weapons, the armory, essentially. It says places of chariots and sacrifices. Well, chariots, again, are associated with horses, and it's also associated with fire and the solar fire. And Sagittarius is very much a sign of fire, and more of, not the solar fire completely because that's Leo, but it's more of the sign of the spiritual fire. And chariots are just associated with that for a number of reasons, from a number of angles. But so this could also relate to chariots. But of course, we don't have chariots that often in our modern day, and I don't know if this would relate to vehicles or other types of things like that. I don't know if I can say that. Haven't really found that to be true yet, but it might be. And then sacrifices are still very true. Places where people are doing rituals, sacrificial grounds, those can be ruled by Sagittarius. Now, I don't actually have any examples to share in my own life of Sagittarius environments, but when I was thinking about this a while back, I was thinking about how football fields would likely be ruled by Sagittarius, because they're like places of, it's a war game essentially, and it's on a flat landed space, and it's it just, you know, Sagittarius likes sports. It likes jovialness, you know, having fun, drinking. These things are kind of all associated with football. And I'm talking about American football, not European football or soccer. Sorry, I should have probably made that more clear. But the typical American football fields where people ram at each other and you just have to score a touchdown. It's basically a war game when you think about it, and Sagittarius is a sign of war again, and war games, of course, not like going to war for no reason, but ideally a strong Sag will only do that if it's the last resort and if it's going to actually cause less damage or less pain or less suffering later on down the road. But what's interesting is, so football fields would be ruled by Sagittarius, but then Gemini would rule the stadium where it's entertained and watched from. So when you're in the stands or the bleachers or the stadium of a big football arena, you're going to be in the Gemini environment where you're enjoying and entertained by this. And you know, Sag is the 7th from Gemini. So it's the opposite, the other people playing the game, and you're enjoying that. So I definitely think football fields are ruled by Sagittarius, especially the big time arenas, like the really big NFL ones. So what I did was I looked up when was the first football game ever played, and you can Google this, and it's in you can read about it on Wikipedia and stuff. And the first football game was played at it was at like a military academy. I believe, I want to say West Point, but that might have been wrong. It was at some type of military academy, and I looked at the ephemeris at that time, and there were like 4 planets in Sagittarius at that time. So that was pretty cool because it was like Mars, Moon, Mercury. One other planet was all in Sagittarius at the time that the first game of football was played. And they actually described it as being very similar, much closer to rugby at the time, but a rugby field would still be the same thing in this context. So that's really the best, or the only example I have, unfortunately, but I just wanted to be straightforward and let y'all know. And that's probably, astrologically, the reason I don't have any good examples of this is probably because, for me, I have Saturn in Sagittarius, and Saturn is the planet of lack and not having things. So I don't have an example. Sorry. Okay. Move on to Capricorn in the next one. Thank you.